In our massive country, there are card collectors throughout the land participating in the hobby. There's Mike of Junk Wax Hero and Greg of Midlife Cards. And while distance may separate them, here is where they come together to talk cards. Here is where we come together to talk cards. Myself and Mike. Mike, another week down, another week of some drama stuff, but we're still here. And a week from today, as we're recording this on Thursday, we will be eating until we hate ourselves, which is always my motto on Thanksgiving.
It's not a long trip for me. Hating myself is always so close.
Well, we're just trying to stay positive.
That's a Louis C.K. bit.
Is it?
Yeah, he talks about I don't remember. I'm going to ruin the gag, but he talks about eating until he hates himself.
I mean, I knew I ripped it off from somewhere. I just didn't know who exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So another week down. I've had a very busy week. I've had videos like every day, not because I want to have videos every day, but sometimes I feel like there are some videos I need to do because there's something I feel the need to address. So if you are listening to this on the podcast, it would be Saturday, and I have a video today for my something like my 6th straight day. If you are listening on YouTube, last week was crazy. So one of the things we're going to talk about today is one of those conversations, or at least the topic around that conversation. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just want to say, I haven't watched all of the videos you put out this week, but the ones that I have watched are, I guess, the concept of the videos, even the ones that I haven't watched, is brilliant. You've taken the next step in the shill bidding scandal, controversy, whatever you want to call it, and you've said, okay, we've gone through this. What do we do next? And you've talked to 3 experts in the industry and gotten their perspective. You've asked them really good questions and then gotten out of their way. Let them, and that's the perfect interview, is to just ask a handful of good questions and let the experts speak. And the Jeremy Lee one, which we're going to talk about today, was A+.
Oh, well, Jeremy is I really like Jeremy. There were a couple of times in that conversation where I was trying to get my bearings. I was trying to get my feet under me because I was like, where is he? I'm not sure where he's going right now because I was just kind of I was I was so unaware of the intricacies and the history of auction houses that he was saying stuff. And in the Jeff Wilson and Dr. Beckett episode that dropped this week, I feel like there were times that Dr. Beckett was saying some of the things that Jeremy mentioned in the episode. And I think some of the people that were listening were maybe not really following because to them, they're so aware of the history of auction houses and the intricacies between them that some stuff was just glossed over. So part of me feels like where we should maybe start is by just kind of backing up and looking at that. We have not talked at all since you've seen the episode. So I have no idea what your takeaway is. I have no idea what your opinion is. But one of the things I do feel like we need to say here to at least set the foundation for the conversation is auction houses have been around for a really long time, and they've sold
Jeremy
all.
says 150 years, some of them.
Correct. In the interview, he mentions a couple of times he's writing a book on this topic. I think that's important to know. It's important to know that he's done tons and tons of research on auction houses, on each of the auction houses in the sports card space right now. He's an expert in auction houses, especially with cards right now. And in his in his digging, he's seen that a lot of the things that some of these auction houses are doing are things that have been happening for decades and decades and decades. But but our experience walking into the auction house space is eBay. And Dr. Beckett mentioned this in the episode, and Jeremy mentioned it early on in our conversation, that we come in thinking eBay is the standard of how auction houses work. And oh my gosh, these other auction houses have house bidding? That's insane. You can't do house bidding. Now, whether or not we like house bidding or not is beside the point for a moment at least. The fact is that they've been having house bidding for 150 years. And now we have eBay come in. Have eBay as our experience. That is our understanding of how it works. And then we're saying you can't do that because that's not allowed on eBay. So with that as the premise, what were some of your takeaways here?
The first of all, the challenges with auction houses are myriad. There are so many of them, and Jeremy does a great job of laying out a handful of them. And I think I'm really looking forward to his book.
Yeah.
And if I can just say, instead of selling your cards via an auction at an auction house, you should go with Chris Sewell. Our sponsor for Surface Issues is Chris Sewell Sports Cards. He will buy your cards from you and he will give you a great deal. He is our one trusted dealer. Email sewellsportscards@gmail.com if you are interested in selling part of or all of your collection. I receive emails from people. I just got one a half hour ago from somebody saying he was selling his collection to Chris Sewell and he was very happy with it.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah. So that being said, one big takeaway for me is something I heard a few times in the past week, and something that you and Jeremy kind of alluded to, but you didn't go quite as far as I've heard a couple of other people say it, which is if you have two people that are willing to bid, one person, one real person, and then a shill bidder, and let's say the card is $1,000 card, just to keep it simple, and the shill bidder bids it up to $1,000, and the other person, the real bidder, bids $1,010. The argument that I keep hearing that you and Jeremy came up to but didn't quite say, I don't think, is that that is now a $1,010 card because that other person, bidder number two, the real bidder, was willing to pay that much and it's a legit comp. And I strongly disagree with that because the most important bidder isn't the real bidder or the shill bidder, it's the third bidder who is the second legitimate bidder. Because if that second legitimate bidder only bid to 500, then that card is only a $510 card because the winner, the other real bidder, only would have had whatever the next increment is after $500. Depending on the auction house, it could be 525. I'm not sure, but it's a little over $500. The only reason it went for over $1,000 is because the shill bidder bid it up there. And so some people say, well, the other person was willing to get there. Yes, but they wouldn't have needed to. And there isn't any tracking. There's no on if I'm put in my max bid of $1,000 and only pay $500, that doesn't make it $1,000 card. It is a $500 card. eBay doesn't report out the winning bidders.
Mike froze temporarily, which is perfect. It's like I have a remote control and I can just pause Mike whenever I want, except in
Oh,
this case, I didn't have to hit pause. He just froze. It was
man,
perfect. It's like, let's just cut him off. Let's
I
just
was in
cut him off.
I was in such a groove too. My
Keep
internet
going. Keep going.
went out. Where was I when you lost me?
You I think it wasn't that long ago. It was 10 seconds or so ago. And you were basically saying that the card isn't $1,000 card. It's really a $500 card because that's where the second real bidder left stopped.
Right. So did you hear me talk about eBay and my max bid in eBay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So eBay doesn't report out what my max bid is if I won. Right? So if I max bid $1,000, but I win at a 500, eBay isn't saying he won at 500, but his max bid was 1,000, so now the comp is $1,000. That max bid is completely irrelevant. The only thing that's irrelevant is what won.
So I'm going to be totally straight. I've done on Monday, I did a recording with Darren. On Wednesday, no, on Tuesday, I did a recording with Jeremy and with Hoj. On Sunday, I did a recording with Joe Perot. And I don't remember which of those 4 conversations I said the following, but my opinion is that in an auction, the true comp is not what somebody ends up paying, it's what the second highest person is willing to pay.
The
I
second
I
highest,
said
second highest
bidder,
legitimate,
legitimate bidder.
not the.
Yes.
So
Yes.
you have to take out the shill bidder here.
Yes,
Yeah.
100%.
Okay.
I am in full agreement with you so
Okay.
far. Um, I don't know how I've come across in some of these conversations. I don't know which of those I said that, but the comp is really what the second real person, the under bidder who is real, is willing to pay for the auction. That's the real comp for me. That's the real value to me. Now, when you start getting into these semantics, though, then when you start looking at valuations, best offers versus auctions are very different, because in an auction, it's the second highest real bidder. In a best offer, it might just be some lazy rich guy who found a card and goes, I don't care that it's $1,000 too much. I'm going to pay it because $1,000 doesn't mean anything to me. So, best offers and buying for straight amounts at times, in my opinion, don't truly represent the market. They just might represent somebody with a lot of money who's lazy. And for years before before I had Card Ladder, before I had Market Movers, before I had VCP, I used to go through and I would find averages. I would literally go for like a 3-month stretch, and I would look in eBay, because it would go back 3 months in sales. I would put every sale of that PSA 8 Mark McGuire card. I literally wrote it on a piece of paper. Then I added them all up. I divided by the number of them to get the average. I did it by hand. And I did that for a year and a half before I had any app that could tell me the information. I did it by hand in eBay for a long time. And I had people come on the channel who would leave comments and say, the fact, and I said, I'm only using auctions, because to me, those are the only comps we can actually somewhat believe. Now that's maybe a completely different story, but I felt like the best offers didn't really represent it. So I completely agree with you personally that the auction and the second highest bidder is the second highest real bidder is the true definition of what the card is worth.
Yeah, I agree. Did you ever consider using median instead of average?
I could have used median. The problem with uh, I could have
Most of the
used
time, it
median.
wouldn't matter. Most of the time,
It,
it wouldn't matter, but
it
sometimes there
wouldn't.
might be an
Yeah,
outlier.
yeah. The problem I think that I had is there were times that you have 6 sales of a 1954 alkaline in a 5. You have 6 sales, and 4 of them were at $3,000. Well, 4 of them were at $1,000, and one of them was at $500, and one of them was at $600. And it's like, well, it's not real. The median in this case isn't really. It's so they both have value.
Sure.
They have a different value. Could have been a good choice, but it depends on the sample size on how valid a median is, I think.
Yeah, that's fair.
Um, okay. So Jeremy said in the conversation that when I said auction houses are dot dot dot, he said misunderstood. Before listening to that episode, before listening to that conversation with Jeremy, and if I had said auction houses are misunderstood, I would have said, huh? But personally, after listening to it, I would say he might be right. Where are you on that?
Well, calling on auction house misunderstood makes me feel like it's the auction house is the weird kid down the street that nobody likes, and their parents are saying, "Well, he's just misunderstood." When auction houses are these behemoth corporations for the most part, especially the ones that he's talking about. And I think that they're misunderstood probably for good reason. They probably are intentionally hiding certain things about their company that I think that a better way for Jeremy to phrase that would have been that buyers, auction participants, or even people who are too scared to participate in these auctions don't understand enough about what they're getting into, rather than saying the auction houses are misunderstood, which is just an unusual turn of phrase for Jeremy to use.
Do you remember the app Angry Birds?
Of course. I
First it
played it for
came.
about 7 minutes. Yeah.
You would slingshot
Yeah.
birds and try to knock things down. And that was like this whole, thing for a little bit. There was Angry Birds was this app that everyone had. And and I remember saying to my students in my computer technology class, I teach an introductory, basically computer applications, how to use Microsoft Office is basically the class. And I said, "How many of you have Angry Birds?" They all had it at the time. How many of you know why they give you this free game to play? Nobody, because it's fun. So they just spent all this money to create this app for your enjoyment. That's why they did it. Because behind the scenes, when you went scroll, 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 click, I agree and accept, what you were scrolling past were things like, we can track all of your data. We can track, your search engine use. We can track where you're going. We can track what you're spending. All these things that you just are scrolling by and you hit accept. And I think that that's part of the problem with auction houses is it's so easy to skip all of that because they want you to skip all that. You don't actually know the rules. I mean, you've said many times that you used to play tennis, right? You played like high school tennis. You were a pretty good tennis player, right?
Yeah, I was better in
So,
college.
okay. So in college, you played tennis and you understand tennis. Have you ever played pickleball?
I've never played pickleball.
Okay. Do you know the rules of pickleball?
I don't. I know that there's one really strange rule, but I don't remember what it is.
So, for example, a rule of pickleball is the area toward the front by the net, it's called the kitchen. You can't step into that area near the net. You have to stay a certain distance away from the net. And if you travel into that area, the kitchen, then you lose the point. And somebody who's been playing tennis for years and years and years would say, "Oh, I know how to play this. It's just like tennis. It's like ping pong meets tennis. I know how to play both of those." And then you step over the line into the kitchen and they say, "You lost the point." Well, you come in, sometimes we come into these situations with some knowledge of somewhat how something works because we've all been to a silent auction at a charity dinner and we've all bought something or sold something on eBay, so we think we know how it works, but nobody knows how that one works. And because we kind of know how auctions work but we don't actually know that this one allows this and this and this, we then get mad when we find out people are doing things that are actually allowed. Now, personally, I think we should all have an uprising to not allow those things. I don't think we should allow house bidding. I think we should get our pitchforks out about people bidding on their own cards. But if you knew the rules before you started bidding and you didn't just scroll past it and click I agree, then it would probably eliminate some of the confusion. Am I crazy?
No, you're 100% right, except I have never been to a silent auction at a charity dinner. And you said we have all been to one. I've never been to even a charity dinner. I live in Maine.
Oh.
There are no
That's too
charity
bad.
dinners in Maine.
They should have tons of, like, lobster all you can eat lobster feeds and things up there. I mean, that's like a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Out in California, we have crab feeds like crazy because they just shoot it down from Seattle and Alaska. There's crab legs all over the place, and so they'll
Mm.
do crab feeds, and you go and you bid on some stupid crap that you don't need to raise money, and you eat crab, and it's fun. So, anyways,
No,
that's, I think, part of the problem. Again, I think that they are deceptive. I think that they purposefully, just like Angry Birds makes it really easy to skip what they're actually doing behind the scenes. I think some of these auction houses are making it conveniently easy to skip past those things. But
r
just because we've bid on eBay doesn't mean we know how all auction houses should be working.
but your comparison of Angry Birds with Angry Birds, you're likely to never feel the impact of whatever they're doing with your data behind the scenes, right? Even if they sell your data, you're probably never gonna know they sold it. Whereas with Heritage, you are being impacted in bigger ways. Sorry, I said Heritage. We weren't mentioning Heritage, but I think that's the one that we're talking about. With certain auction houses, I should say, uh, they are allowing bidding up to the reserve or up just below the reserve. And that has a direct impact on the people who are bidding on them. And Jeremy points out that only 9 out of 4,000 for one auction house were reserve based auctions. It's a very, very low number. None that I would ever bid on, I'm sure. But the things that they do, they're allowed to do shill bidding, and I don't know that they call it shill bidding, but some auction houses in some states are allowed to do that, and that's much more insidious to me than the Angry Birds selling your data or using it for other reasons.
Yeah, I think some people would agree with that. And I think some people would think that the fact that I'm being tracked and it's being sold to companies to use against me in advertising and things is maybe worse or better. I don't know, but I agree with that to at least to a certain extent. I think, and I'm not, trust me, I'm not defending auction houses here. What I'm saying is I am I am defending accountability. I am a believer in accountability. As a teacher, you turn your work in late, I hold up my garbage can, I say you can put it in my late work container. This is where it goes. I hold people accountable. And I think to a certain extent, a lot of people who are using auction houses never actually learn the rules of the auction houses. And now they're mad about how the auction houses are working. Again, that sounds like I'm defending the auction house. I'm not defending the auction house. I would love, and this is where I want to head next with this conversation is okay, then what is a solution? Instead of just continuing for us all to just pile on and complain and blah, blah, I want to hear us actually, what are some things that could be done? What are some things that could be said or demanded? And Jeremy mentioned one, and I don't remember exactly what he mentioned on camera, off camera, so I don't want to get into too many details, but there are some auction houses that when he made some recommendations and when he asked about certain things, they have made changes or are making changes to some of their policies when they were kind of called out on it. So part of me is like, well, maybe we should all start going auction house by auction house and put it front and center for everyone. Okay, this week we're doing REA. What do they allow? And go through it and make it public and then demand and say, this is what we want. Okay, if you have a congressman or a congresswoman who you want something done, people will do email campaigns. Here's the click on the link. The link takes you to their the congressperson's email address. Let's all email them what we want. We've all, well, I guess we all haven't maybe had that because we haven't even been to a crab feed, but I think that there are things that could be done. So what are some of the things that we could or should be doing besides just continuing to stomp our feet and pound our fists on the desk?
Oh boy, I don't know that I have a great answer for you, but I think that the easy thing for us as consumers to do is to avoid, first of all, like you said, be accountable. Take note of any any rule within the rule terms and conditions of an auction house that impact us. And you should go auction house by auction house and look, just like Jeremy's doing, and say, this auction house allows this type of thing. I don't like that, so I'm not going to use that auction house. And we should also ask for that auction house to make it clear on each auction, if this has a reserve, it should say bidding by the auction house is permitted on this auction up until the reserve or whatever the rule might be. Make that more clear. I also believe in accountability, but I also believe in holding the auction houses accountable
Yeah.
for their behavior and
Yeah.
making sure that they are protecting consumers that's the best that we can make them do.
I think at the very least, people need to know. They need to
Yeah.
know that this auction house allows shill bidding.
Yeah.
They allow house bidding. They have a computer which is upping the bid behind the scenes every time you bid, and it looks like it's a person, but it's not actually a person. I think at the very least, that's what we should be doing. But me saying, you know what, I'm not going to use XYZ auction house anymore because they do this, they are not really going to feel that. Are they? If one guy does that, I think it has to be broader than that. It has to be a more of a grassroots effort to actually get something to change where they feel it. People keep saying PSA's grades are inconsistent. Their turnaround time takes too long. They keep jacking up the prices and they upsell. But every month they hit a new all-time record on how many people are submitting. And I know of a handful of, or I know of three handfuls of people who won't submit to PSA anymore. Yeah, one of them has his hand up, and they won't submit to PSA anymore. But I can tell you what, PSA could care less. They couldn't care less. They're just like, oh, okay, well, we'll miss you.
Yeah.
They don't care. So it doesn't actually affect them until they're affected. Then it's not going to change. Um, Now, Hoj mentioned something the other day, and on my Wednesday video, I don't know if you saw that yet or saw the
I've
whole
watched
thing.
two-thirds of it.
So he mentions some sort of council where the council comes up with a grade for each auction house. And the grade is representative of the validity of the values based on their rules and what they allow and what they don't allow. So then, if you see in theory, oh, this card sold at XYZ auction house, uh, well, that's because XYZ auction house has a D minus grade because they have computers bidding against you. But if you're at CIA auction house where they ban shill bidders, cards that aren't paid for can't be relisted for 6 months and all this stuff, the validity of it is much higher. The other thing that Chris Hoche talked about is some of the auction houses don't just provide them with the sale amount, but they then later confirm that it was actually paid for, which isn't perfect because there are still things that are paid for that were shilled, but it's at least better than what the final sale amount was, and then the auction house gets ghosted. So if you're an auction house who not only uh, gives the information, but gives the information and confirms it was paid for, and you don't allow in-house bidding, and you don't allow shilling, and you don't allow all these things like our friends at CIA do, well, they get an A. So then when you see that value or you see that comp or you see that sale, you have a more positive opinion of that sale because of the rating that it receives from this council. Your thoughts?
So, help me understand how the rating works. Is it just a visual on the comp itself, or does it actually impact the index or the average comp calculation?
Well, that would be up to a card ladder or a company like that if they wanted to, because
Oh,
like
so this
card
is a
ladder,
this is a theoretical.
this
This
is a
isn't some
theoretical. So
ah,
card ladder has a confidence rating for every sale. So if the card is like, yeah, they're like, yeah, we're very confident that in this comp. This is legit. This is somebody who's bought 10,000 cards. It was through a company who, provides the data where it's actually sold and that the transaction happened. It would have like a confidence level of 5. And the one where it's like zero feedback, sold for $10,000 over it's ever sold before, it has a confidence zero of 1. So it would be along those lines. But what he's suggesting is a group of industry people look at the rules of the different auction houses and give each of them a grade. And when in the conversation, my counter was in Sacramento County, where I live, when you walk up to any place that sells food, on the window, it is required when you walk in to have posted an 8.5 by 11 sheet that has a grade on it. And the grade is A, B, C, D, F. And it's based on the inspector's inspection report of the cleanliness of the restaurant. And so if you start walking up to a restaurant and you see it has a C, you're going, are we sure we want to eat here? If it has an A, you go, okay, well, this gives me some information about what I'm walking into. So if you have these grades that are given to the auction houses, it provides, I think, a certain level of comfort. And I was like, well, do you think this should be an idea that would be for Card Ladder to put together, or like an independent panel? And he's like, well, ideally for me, he goes, I would prefer it be independent. He goes, we would support it. But then if it's Card Ladder's one, then, people is there a conflict of interest and,
right.
all that kind of thing. So there are issues with that. And so in the episode, I shout out, I say, hey, if anybody's interested in throwing some money into this, getting involved in this, has different types of backgrounds, on legalities, on, all of it. And, I mean, maybe it just starts with a sports card clubhouse grade, and it's the sports card clubhouse grade of, confidence of each auction house. Maybe that's where it starts, and then somebody can buy us out.
I love it. Yeah, $25 million.
I'd take 23, but 25 is kinda what I'm hoping for.
But we'd report 25 million as the comp.
Oh, well, we'd probably comp it at 500 million, and then that way, for tax purposes, I don't yeah, so, I mean, those are the sorts of ideas that I think have maybe some potential. I mean, if Mike Baker can take a
Right.
sticker
Hmm.
and attach it to the front of my slab and provide me with confidence about the looks of the card and charge $25 to do that, it seems like something like this, it can't hurt. I mean,
I'm attaching scratch and sniff stickers to all of my slabs.
do you remember having the scratch and sniff stickers as a kid? You'd have one and you'd scratch it and it smelled like a strawberry, and then you'd always have one that was like a skunk, and you'd
Yeah.
scratch it and you'd smell the
Oh, yeah.
skunk one. I can
Yeah.
still smell that skunk scratch and sniff sticker.
Yeah, absolutely, and there were always a few that were really terrible.
Yeah.
I don't remember what any of the other bad ones were, but yeah.
There was always one that was like a pine or like a,
Yep,
like
that's
a
exactly the one I was thinking of initially, but that's not a bad smell. That's one of the
no,
good
no,
ones.
no, no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there was
There's
also
this,
all the fruit ones like grape
yeah,
and lemon and yeah,
of course.
definitely. We
Have
grew up at
to.
the same time, same
Yeah.
era. Trapper
Yes.
Keepers.
Yeah. I mean, they even had those things in Maine. They just didn't have crab feeds.
And that's right, yeah. What what
Yeah.
what did you have for a Trapper Keeper?
Well, I had like it was like a BMX bike style. It was sort of like
Oh,
checkered. It was like
yeah.
black and white checkered. Before that, I did have a Smurf lunchbox for
Ah,
sure.
nice.
We talked about Smurfs the other day.
Yeah.
You know,
I
yeah.
had a
So,
Lamborghini Trapper Keeper, which was my pride and
oh,
joy, and I also had a Garfield one. I was a big Garfield fan.
mm, I could see that. Yeah. We used to build like ramps for our bikes and
Yes.
hammer nail them together and then,
Yes.
crash and all that stuff.
But,
So,
to your point, though, I think what is really cool is seeing these conversations come out where we are actually making change, or
yes.
we aren't making the change ourselves, but collectors are effecting change in the industry and saying, we are not going to tolerate this anymore. We're going to keep talking about this until somebody does something about it.
And, the sports card clubhouse team has a lot of ideas that are coming down the pike. And,
Yes.
we have some stuff that's coming, guys. You're
Yep.
going to be excited. But one of the things that you and I have talked about is doing a weekly poll and asking some things and then talking about the response of the poll. And I'm looking
Mhm.
forward to us doing that. And we're going to do that. But again, we have a lot of things in motion behind the scenes. But I think asking about other people's confidence in auction houses and what do you feel about your confidence level of the auction houses, you could have part of the percentage of the grade be the community and part of it be, different people who really sink their teeth into it and investigate it. But again, that's the whole point of this week for me. And the reason that I've been like tirelessly, and I mean tirelessly, pumping stuff out every day for 6 days. And then, by the way, I do want to throw this out there. Monday, I have a midlife live number 11. I'm doing my video on Monday and I'm doing a midlife live, but I am ready to continue to move forward and not stay stuck at this same place. And part of moving forward is okay, this happened. So, what are we going to do now to make this not happen again, or at least as much, and lessen some of the issue? And some of the brainstorming I'm trying to create, and Jeremy shares a couple of ideas, and Hose shared some ideas, and Joe and you and I are talking about this. So that's where I am in this process right now. Is now what? That's where we are. Is now what?
Yeah. It's a, like I said at the beginning, what you've done this week is a really cool, really smart next step transition. And I've watched the Joe Perot one, and I've watched 2/3 of the Jeremy. No, I watched all of Jeremy Lee. What did I watch 2/3 of again? Chris
Hose.
Hoge. Yeah, and they're really really well done. They're very thought provoking. You've got three experts on, three guys who have a lot of ideas and a lot of influence, and I've enjoyed it a lot.
Well, I appreciate that, and I think that every channel has a different flavor on what they bring, and one of the things that I try to have as a core, like, pillar, if there's a four-legged chair or a three-legged stool, one of the core pieces for me of the channel is to be somewhat of a consumer advocate for collectors in the community. And if I'm a collector in the community right now with some of the stuff that we've been through, I would be saying, is this still for me? That's what I would be thinking is this still for me with all of this drama? And it's drama that we need to talk about because it affects collectors. But now, okay, Hoj, what do you do at Card Ladder to help me get legit comps instead of fake comps? Okay, Jeremy, tell me about the auction houses so I can start to know how they work, why they work that way, the history of how they work, so that I can start to go, my big takeaway from that Jeremy Lee thing is I guess if I'm bidding at an auction house, I should probably go back and read the rules. That's what I hope at the
Yeah.
end of it people think.
Yep.
And to me, th- doing that conversation to have that takeaway makes it a worthy conversation to have.
Yep.
We're 40 minutes in. We've solved all of the world's problems. I mean, at this point, I mean, Do we just shut this whole thing down now that everything has been solved?
I'm shutting off my channel. No more videos from me. We're gonna shut down Sports Card Clubhouse. We fixed it. We're
Yeah.
good.
All right. Well, I mean, it
But
was
I
a
do have an
fun ride,
announcement.
man. It
I
was a
I
fun
do
ride.
I do have a minor announcement that I wanted to get in here. I have been doing rotating, meet a hobby creator and meet a so you wanna be a dealer, and I'm changing things up. I'm gonna start doing a weekly podcast, and I love doing those, by the way, but I'm gonna start doing a weekly podcast where I talk to somebody in the industry, somebody influential or popular, somebody who or really knowledgeable expert about something that has happened in the past week or so. And this past week I talked to Teapot about his kind of part accidentally in the shill bidding scandal. Not that he was involved, but and the week before that, I talked to John Keating about the shill bidding scandal, and I really, really enjoyed those. And it was exciting and fun. And so I'll be doing that. I do have a couple of dealers I'll be doing videos with, and then another hobby content creator. So I'll mix those in too. But for the most part, it's going to be kind of a weekly this week in sports cards, I
Oh,
guess.
I like that. It's yeah. I think that that is fantastic. I like the willingness to kind of pivot to the thing that you're enjoying most. You know, like when I think when we both started our channels, our regular channels, not this channel, we didn't really know what our channel was. And it took a while for us to go, oh, our channel is this. And then it sort of starts to take shape. And I think that that's what's happening with the podcast that you're doing is it's starting to take shape in what is the most fun for you. And I think that those last two, especially, they've all been really good. I've listened to all of them, but those
Thank you.
last two, especially, because they're current and because they're topical of what's happening, they've been very intriguing.
Thanks. Just
Yeah,
got to get Jeff Wilson on one of these days.
he will. He'll come on.
I think
He'll
so.
come on.
I
Give
think
me
so.
a couple other names just in the last couple minutes of this. Okay, so you'd like to have Jeff. Throw out 3 or 4 other people that you think would be, guests. Again, it part of it depends on what's happening at that time, but theoretically, who are some people that you think would be good to have on?
Well, I could see a rotation involving people like Teapot, Jeremy Lee. I'd love to have Mike Moynihan in one time. Well, probably more than one time, but get him in. Neo would be a fun one to have. I'd love to get Dustin in, but I wouldn't want to talk to Dustin about current events. I would want to talk to Dustin of Sports Card Dad about his channel because that guy gets more criticism in the comments than most YouTubers do. And I would love to talk to him about that. I think that would be a lot of fun. So there are some others too that I think would be really interesting, but those are the ones. Oh, Chris Hoge, I would want to have on people like that. That
Nat
uh,
Turner?
mm, sure, Nat Turner would never come on. I don't think he
Why?
or uh, I just I'll ask him. You know what? I'll ask him.
He'll come on.
I've asked
He'll come on.
Jeff. I've asked Jeff. He ignores me, even though he tweeted at me saying that he
Je
wanted to come on my podcast. Ever since then, every time I've mentioned it, saying, "Come on, Jeff, let's do it
no,
now," he,
Jeff will come on. Jeff will
he
come on.
ignores me.
Jeff will come on, Hoj will come on, Nat will come on, all those guys will come on. They'll come on. It's listen, if you are
Prestige
unfit
podcast, Greg. Prestige podcast.
if
That's what we're talking
you
about here.
if you were prestige worldwide, if you were listening to the teapot one, you you are not unfair. You're not an unfair interviewer. You are asking people fair questions. You are giving them an opportunity to talk. You're not railroading them. There's no reason why anybody wouldn't want to come on. If anybody who you said, "Hey, here's my episode with Teapot," when Teapot kind of had his back up against the wall, this was my conversation. I would like to have a similar question and answer and interview discussion with you like this about your situation. There's no reason anybody would turn that down.
Yeah, I agree. And I was very fair to Teapot. I asked him some difficult questions. He acknowledged after we were done. Those were some difficult questions, but they were really fair. And
Yeah.
that's my goal. I don't want to embarrass anybody. I don't want to uh, railroad anybody. I just want to get the things that everybody is thinking about that
Yeah.
nobody dares ask. I want to ask those questions.
Yeah. I love it. All right, buddy. 45 minutes. World solved. Problem
Again,
solved.
we solve it every week, Greg. It's amazing.
It's pretty incredible. I'm surprised that some higher level people haven't hired us at this point to solve their problems. I
Right.
mean,
Yeah.
it's
Bring
this is child's play.
bring us in
All
for a
right.
week. We will fix everything until next
Yeah.
week when we'll fix it all again.
Perfect. All right. I will see you in 6 days and 23 hours and 15 minutes.
Looking forward to it.